Hello, my name is Scott Cooper. I'm the host of the Millennial Nerds podcast. I get to talk to our community about what we love doing, from the products that we make, to the people behind them, to the opinions, to the streamers, to the gamers, to the YouTubers, whatever you want to call yourself. This is our story, and this is your podcast. Listen to me on iTunes and Spotify, or find me on Facebook at Millennial Nerds.
Welcome to episode 2 of Get Rich or Die Cleaning. I hope you enjoyed the first episode last week where we had Blake Gaston Sanchez, business mastermind and self-help guru Blake Gaston Sanchez. He'll be back this week to take us from step 1 to step 2 of his program, Get Rich or Die Cleaning. So without further ado, let's get Blake back. So just ringing on Skype here. Oh, just fiddling around with that.
Hello?
Oh, hi Blake. Nice to hear from you again. What have you been up to this week before we leap back into the program?
Well, I've had a real busy week, Pete. I've been researching many of the ideas that we floated around last week. I remember that really good idea I had about selling flowers from a store.
Yeah, I remember that, Blake. Yeah, well, that was a good idea. I do think...
Well, yeah, sure. If you let me finish. Jeez. Yeah, it turns out that there's already quite a few places where you can already buy flowers, especially in the United Kingdom, where a lot of your listeners are from. Turns out there's this company called Flora, and yeah, it's a pretty saturated market. Also, when I went to the store myself to buy groceries, and yeah, they're already selling flowers in like every major supermarket. So if you took my advice from last week and tried to become a flower salesman, I apologize because you probably haven't made no money. But if you have, write to me at BlakeGastonSanchez.com /Blake's email address /contact form /PayPal, because if you send me an email, you will have to pay me $5. I think that's a reasonable payment for my time.
I agree. When you say, so if someone sends you an email, they'll be charged $5.
That is correct, yes. That's another really good idea. You can change your home phone line number to a premium rate number, so you get paid every time you get a phone call. I mean, these are just basic things you need to do to become rich.
So is this call costing me as well?
We'll discuss a fee at the end, but usually for 1 minute of my talk time, I charge about $1,500. But I'm feeling benevolent, Pete, so I will give you a significant discount.
That's very generous of you, Blake. So the flower shop idea, maybe not the best?
Definitely not. I would not recommend opening up a florist unless perhaps you already have some experience in this market, or you can sell them for cheaper than a supermarket can, or if you live in a place devoid of all plant and animal life, and you can somehow get flowers when other people can't. That's what is known as supply and demand. It is a fundamental part of business. You may have heard of an economist here or there saying the words supply and demand. Now, you should not forget those things that you hear. It's very important, if you are selling something, that someone wants to buy it. Because if you sell things in your store and no one buys them, you will not make any money. That is fundamental. Write that down.
Well, thanks, Blake. I think we should kind of leap into things here. Could you remind us again, just quickly, of the 6 steps in the Get Rich or Die Cleaning program?
Well, yes, I can. you should probably listen, though, to the first episode of this podcast where I go into detail about each step. But just quickly, so step 0, this is you, your average Joe. You clean your own house. No one wants to start there, but that's where everyone starts. It sucks. Cleaning sucks. But with my program, you will no longer have to do it. So you move from step 0, which is you. You are a 0. Move up to step 1, which is get paid to be a cleaner. That is very important. If you do anything, if you do any iota of work, make sure you get paid for it. Because if you do something, even if you enjoy it, even if it's just to make you happy, you should get paid. Nothing is worth anything unless you are getting paid for it. Everything you do that makes no money is a waste of time. If you're having sex, charge the person you're having sex with money. Sex is fun, but it's not as fun as getting paid.
I feel like we're getting a bit sidetracked here, Blake. Let's just go on to the next step.
Well, absolutely. Step 2 is where we're going to try and get to this week, is ordering your cleaner around. You should always, when rich, boss people about, and that's what we'll be talking about this week. The next step, step 3, is when you reach the level where you have domestic staff, but you're no longer really aware of them. You definitely don't have to look at them. Step 4 is when you reach a point where you know cleaners exist, but for all intents and purposes, you don't really need to ever think about them. And step 5 is the level I'm at, which is where you forget how things become clean. You just simply forget domestic staff exist. You never see them. Everything happens almost as if by magic. And living in that kind of fantasy world, it's so good. And that's where I live.
Absolutely. It's an illuminating program. I read your ebook this week.
Oh, sure. My ebook's great. You should buy it. It's $600 from BlakeGastonSanchez.com/ebook/$400. That will be changing to $600 very shortly, because I've had a lot of interest in my ebook from this podcast. So you should definitely buy it. You should definitely give me $600.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been reading it. There are some quite illuminating things. It's a very short book, 4 sides of A4, so it doesn't take long to finish, but it requires rereading, definitely. I would recommend it to people as well. And it's nothing to do with me getting 10% of the book sales.
Absolutely not. You're getting 10%? Did you discuss that with my agent?
We can talk about that later. So, we're going to focus today on how to get from step 1 to step 2. Is that correct, Blake?
That is absolutely correct, Pete. We discussed getting from step 0, which is cleaning for yourself, to becoming someone who is paid to clean. We did that last week. I went through some great and very fundamentally important ideas about how to reach that level. So this week, we're going to discuss being a person who is paid to clean, which is where you should be now, to becoming a person who orders other cleaners around. So if you took one of my pieces of advice, which was, if you're cleaning, you should be getting paid for it. So become a professional cleaner. That's a great idea, because then every bit of cleaning you do, you're rewarded with money. Money is awesome. I love money. You should too. And then, once you have lots of money, you can get a step 2. You can tell a cleaner what to do. It's brilliant. So, we'll be talking about that this week. When we need to get to the level where we do no cleaning at all. And we need also to be at a level where we order a cleaner around. So, here are some practical steps to getting your house cleaned for you, where you either pay them a little money, but ideally you get it done for nothing. You get to order someone to clean your house and pay them no money, because that is fundamental in business. Do not pay anybody if you're rich, because when you have lots of money, it's very important to hold on to it and not disseminate it around society. keep as much as you can. Don't pay taxes, because taxes, you might as well just set your money on fire. I mean, where does all that tax money go anyway?
I think it goes on things like public infrastructure, security, healthcare, things like that. I think taxes are quite important, Blake. I know a lot of rich people don't pay taxes. Maybe talk a little bit about why you feel the need not to pay tax.
I don't pay taxes, Pete, because I don't want to have less money than I have now. I have probably $750 million. How much do I spend every year? Probably a couple mil, which is about the amount of money that I make in interest on just off a small fraction of my cash in the bank. But then I would be like, the tax man would come and say, you need to give me $1 million in taxes every year. And I think I like it to have that $1 million instead of the tax guy, because that's my money. And I mean, sure, I live in the world with everybody else. I use hospitals and roads. I demand protection from police officers. But I don't feel like I should have to pay for those things, because I'm rich. I mean, all the people who aren't rich pay the taxes. I don't really see where I come into that equation whatsoever. I mean, I don't have any responsibility. I'm extremely rich. I don't have to do anything that I don't want to anymore, and that includes cleaning. So let's get back into talking about my program, which will make you rich, and then you don't have to pay taxes either. That would be brilliant. If everyone was rich, no one would have to pay any taxes whatsoever. God, that would be an amazing world.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to take us through some notes, things, some practical steps people could take to being able to order a cleaning person to clean their house and potentially pay no money?
Well, sure. The first thing I have down here on my list, we go into a little anecdote here. So one time I was taking a drug called cocaine. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I have, Blake, yeah.
Well, then you'll know that cocaine is what is known as an illegal narcotic. And if a police officer finds you with cocaine, 9 times out of 10, they will take you into custody, potentially put you into prison. So it's very important not to take cocaine in front of police officers. So write that down. That's quite important. But anyway, this one time I was taking this drug called cocaine pretty regularly. I mean, once, twice a day, about a gram in the morning and a gram in the evening. It really laser focused my mind, but as I've mentioned, it is illegal, and you cannot possess it or purchase it at all, because that is against the law. And if a hooker that you punch in the face reports to the police officers down the street that A, you have punched them in the face, and B, you are in possession of large quantities of cocaine on your property, the police have the right to just barge into your home and just trash the place, really ripping shit up looking for my cocaine. But what those police officers who came into my home did not know was that I had already consumed all of the cocaine that I had. There was no more in the house. This was the reason that I became enraged with the prostitute that was in my house, and to the level where I punched her in the face, because I was asking her to go outside and purchase more cocaine and bring it back to the house. And when she did not do that, she said, I am a sex worker. I am not a drugs delivery guy. I became quite agitated, and I did strike her in the face. But she earned not very much money, and therefore I felt justified in punching her. Anyway, that's a story for another day. as I've said, the police came into my house, tore up the place, and because I consumed all of the narcotics, they could not find any, which meant they had to clean my house and put everything back. And my place was like a real wreck, because I had not been cleaning, because I do not do that. And also, I had been taking enormous amounts of cocaine, like just enormous, because it helps me to concentrate. It helps me to concentrate on my work. So the place was already pretty dirty when the cops came in. So once it made it worse looking for my drugs, the state was forced to pay to have my entire house cleaned and tidied for me. So once I realized that I could get the cops to clean my house, I hit upon a brainwave. Whenever my place gets dirty now, I phone up the cops an anonymous tip and report that there are drugs in my house, or that there is a dead prostitute in my swimming pool, things like that. Just so they come in and search, they never find anything, because I don't keep drugs in the house anymore. I have a separate house for my drugs. That's the best part of being rich. So they come in, they throw all my shit all over the place, and then they have to put it all back neatly. They have to clean and mop the floors. I get a clean house for nothing. So yeah, make anonymous tips to the cops. Do that.
Doesn't that waste a lot of police time and resources?
Well, I guess. But at the same time, I'm getting my house clean, so everybody wins. The cops are busy. They're not sitting in their cars eating Kentucky Fried Chicken. They're here. They're busy doing their thing. Cops love kicking in your front door. You get a new front door. I forgot to mention that part. When the cops burst in, they'll kick the door down. So I get a new front door like every week. I mean, that is baller. So another idea I came up with. If you want to order a cleaning person around, it's very, very simple now to hire someone to come into your house and clean. Easy. Like, you can just put an advert on Craigslist, or there's even apps now where a cleaner will just come and clean up. But the downside to this step, in comparison with getting the cops to do it, is that a lot of these cleaning services will require some form of payment. So if you have no money, you are forced to fake it till you make it. This is something I did quite early on in my business career. I would hire a Latino woman who had recently arrived in the country and spoke very little English. I would direct her to clean my apartment. Then I would say, "I'm very sorry, Consuela, but I have no money." And because she was an illegal immigrant, she had no rights no one to report me to, and I just got a new one of these guys in every week. So you could do that too. Get someone who has no legal right to claim money from you, and get them to clean your house for nothing. I mean, that's a win-win situation. If you live somewhere with strict immigration laws, then you will be forced to pay them some money. But as I've mentioned, you can borrow money from banks, from credit card companies, and that, I say borrow, really, it's just like a handout. It's free money. Once you're rich, you don't have to pay it back. You just don't have to. There are ways around that. So borrow the money from the bank, become rich, and then just don't pay them back. It's perfect. And you can hire a person to clean your house for you. It's great. Another idea, I mean, everyone seems so wedded to the idea of living somewhere that is their own, that they can kind of put some sort of personal stamp on. I don't really get that. I mean, I have several houses because it's a good thing to do with your money, is to buy things. It's great. Do it. I would recommend buying lots of items and accumulating them in your property that you have also bought. If you can't afford to do that, don't worry. Complete the program and you'll get there.
We've got a question from Chris, who's sitting right next to you here in London. I love to listen to podcasts on my journeys to and from work. Are there any you can recommend?
Well, actually, Chris, funny you should ask. There's one I'd love to listen to that's called Ask Karen.
So I got to the sandwich ball, and saw the shop, turned left and went in the shop next door.
You never!
Honestly did. And I was going to Specsavers. Literally should have gone to Specsavers.
It's funny, informative, and they not only help people with issues, dilemmas and problems, but they also venture into some great conversations on a variety of topics.
Wow, that sounds like a really fun podcast. By accident, I put my shower curtain on, back to front.
What do you mean you put it on? What's the right way round to wear it?
I didn't wear it.
Were you like playing Superman or something?
Yeah, I was dressing up. I'm guessing I can find it just by searching Ask Karen on any good podcast app.
Yes, that's right, Chris.
I believe they also have a website too that has all the info anyone might need, which is askkaren.co.uk.
It's a lovely looking website too.
That's great. Thanks, Karen. So join me and Karen on our potentially award-winning podcast, Ask Karen.
So as I've said, people are very wedded to this idea of living in one place. But something I did for like a year or two was to live in a hotel. Because in a hotel, your room is cleaned every day. Your bed sheets are changed every day. Your towels are changed every day. You get free cosmetics. All sorts of amazing things just left for free in your hotel room. And then what I would often do after I'd stayed in one hotel for like a week or maybe two, sometimes 3, very often not 4, I would, after some time, I would simply leave the hotel and not pay because I would have some sort of niggling issue. Sometimes I would often write the word fuck on the wall in my own feces, and I would blame a maid and walk out of the hotel saying I will not pay because someone wrote a profanity on my wall in human feces, and that oftentimes they would be apologetic about what had happened. Other times they would become quite angry and say that they would call a police officer. If they did that, if they threatened me with legal action, I would do something I call running away. It is where you move very quickly from the place that you are to another place where you cannot be found. It's covered in my book, How to Run Away and Not Pay for Things. It is something rich people do a lot of, so get used to it. Oftentimes, the IRS, which is the American version of your HM Revenue and Customs, sometimes they will approach me and say, Mr. Sanchez, you have not paid any tax in the last 20 years. When this happens, I say, I will be right back with your taxes. And I disappear into my house. I open up a panel behind my bookcase in my den. And in there is a tunnel. Now, this tunnel leads many, many miles under the city of Los Angeles. At the end of this tunnel is an airfield where I keep an airplane that is oftentimes filled with fuel. And I will get into this plane and it will take off and fly somewhere where the IRS cannot find me. I mean, that is exactly the same, but on a higher level of simply checking out of a hotel without paying and sprinting as fast as you can to a place where you are no longer visible. So, you can live in hotels and not pay. You can also live on a cruise ship. This will be, your room on a cruise ship will be cleaned a lot as well, every day, just like a hotel. The difficulty with living on a cruise ship is that you will oftentimes need to pay before you begin, before they will allow you onto the boat. You will have to pay. So it is not as good as living in a hotel. If you stay in a very, very expensive hotel, they will often not require you to pay any money until you leave the hotel, which is incredible kind of trust they place in people. This trust, if given to me, is misplaced because 9 times out of 10 I will refuse to pay for anything. And therefore, if I come to stay in your hotel, here's a solid piece of business advice. If Blake Gaston Sanchez makes a booking at your hotel, ensure that I pay when I arrive, because, as I have said, I will very, very rarely pay you. And, if you're going to get rich, you're going to need people to pay for things. But I digress. So you can't live on a cruise ship. But it is difficult to get on without paying. So, although you won't have to do any cleaning, and you'll be able to order cleaning ladies about, you'll be at step 2, but it will cost you money. And therefore it is not as good as some of these other ideas. My next idea was to live in a public place, such as a park or a soccer stadium, because these places are also cleaned every single day. The difficulty with living in a public place is oftentimes it is hard to order around the people that clean them. So you'll only partially be at step 2. And therefore it's not the best idea, but if you're really, really struggling, if you really have no money, no job, simply live in an area that is a public space. And if you do that, then you no longer have to spend any money on cleaning, and you can kind of order people around. And finally, step 6, move back in with your parents or your spouse and pay them to do your cleaning for you. It's simple as that. And then you'll be at step 2.
Wow, that's very, very enlightening, Blake. I quite like the idea of living in a hotel. So if you do all of these things, you'll be on your way to being rich. You'll be at step 2.
Absolutely, Pete. If you listen to the advice and take it, the advice I've given you today, you will become rich. You will be on your way to becoming a multi-millionaire.
That is brilliant. So now people enjoyed one of your cassettes from last week, in which you spoke to a business guru in Nepal. I understand you've got another tape, and this is a recording of your very first job interview at Walmart. Is that correct?
That is correct. This is my very first job interview. So let me put the cassette in the player, and I'll press play, and we can listen to that.
Mr. Sanchez, please take a seat.
Well, thank you very much, good sir. I will take a seat right here.
That's my desk, Mr. Sanchez. You must sit on the other side, please.
I like this seat. This seat is where I intend to be within a few weeks of working for Walmart.
I have worked here for 25 years, sir. I don't think it's very likely that you're going to be made the area manager on your first week.
Well, with that attitude, I guess not. But with my attitude, I'm going all the way to the top, baby. Hey, who's this in this picture?
That's my wife, sir.
Oh, I totally bone her. Yeah. So, when do I start?
Well, we'll have the interview first, Mr. Sanchez. What makes you want to work for Walmart?
Well, I noticed most of the people that work here are real dumbasses, so I thought I'd be able to climb to the top of the ladder pretty damn quick.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sanchez. What experience do you have in retail?
Absolutely none from this side, but I go to stores all the time, so I know how it works. The people give you the money and you give them stuff. It's not hard.
That was a little more retail management than that, as ordering and stacking shelves, rotation of stock, etc.
God, sounds pretty boring. Hey, when do I start?
Mr. Sanchez, I don't think we're going to offer you the job today. You seem a little, shall we say, poor of attitude.
Well, I don't think so. So what do you know?
All right, Mr. Sanchez, I don't think you fully understand
what the concept of a job interview is. Have you had one of these before? No? When do I start? Mr. Sanchez, you will not be working for Walmart. I don't know how I can make it any clearer than that. I believe you have a borderline personality disorder, and you should not seek employment in a public place. I believe that you possibly retarded in some way. I don't think that's a very politically correct term anymore, sir. I understand that, Blake. However, it may be true. I am feeling very, very triggered and pressured right now, and I don't think you should speak to me like that, and you should definitely not say the word retarded. I will probably contact a lawyer and have you sued, sir. Mr. Sanchez, I don't want to cause a legal issue here. I apologize for using the word retarded. It was wrong of me. However, you may be mentally challenged. Is that clear to you? Oh, mentally challenged? Mentally awesome, more like. So when do I start? If you drop the lawsuit, I will make you a greeter, and you can start on Monday. Awesome!
Well, that was enlightening, Blake. Thanks for that. Did you ever get the job at Walmart?
I turned up like a week. I got paid. And once I'd been paid, I just decided not to go back, because what's the point?
Yeah, okay, cool. Would you recommend other people to work at Walmart?
Fuck no. No, the place sucks.
How many jobs have you had? Did you always interview like that?
Well, after I worked at Walmart, I got a job in the UK at Virgin Trains. I became the Chief Executive Officer of Virgin Trains. And from then on, I launched my caffeine shampoo company.
That actually explains a lot, really. Explains why your accent has got a tinge of Britishness to it as well.
Well, exactly. I mean, I haven't always lived in the United States. I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, alright. Oh, well, we'll take all of the things on board. Next week, we'll be talking about how to get from step 2 to step 3. Thanks very much, Blake, for coming on.
Thanks for listening. There'll be like 4 more episodes in this series. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. Bye. Thanks for listening.
Well, that was Blake. And as he said, yeah, there'll be 4 more episodes of Get Rich or Die Cleaning. And there will also be many more episodes of the Pete and Fran podcast, our main podcast. Don't forget to download that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks very much for listening to Get Rich or Die Cleaning. And we'll see you next week. Goodbye. Get Rich or Die Cleaning was an improvised comedy show produced and performed by Pete Reinhardt. The music and sound effects were provided by Envato Elements.